The sun hung over the desert like a burning eye, watching everything, forgiving nothing. Heat shimmered off the endless sand, turning the horizon into a wavering illusion. Every breath felt heavier than the last, like my lungs were working against me. I had misjudged the distance, overestimated my strength, and now I was paying for it. My water bottle was empty, the plastic warm against my palm, mocking me with its uselessness. Each step forward took more effort than the one before, my boots sinking slightly into the sand as if the desert itself was trying to hold me back. That's when I noticed him. At first, I thought he was another mirage, just a trick of light and exhaustion, but the shape didn't disappear. An elderly man stood alone near a struggling tree, his frame thin, his posture unsteady, leaning heavily on a carved wooden staff. His clothing marked him as someone from a nearby tribe, traditional and dignified despite the harshness of his surroundings. Even from a distance, I could see something was wrong. He wasn't just resting. He was barely standing. Instinct pushed me forward. When I reached him, his face was pale beneath his weathered skin, his lips dry and cracked. His eyes lifted to meet mine, dark, sharp, and unexpectedly calm. "You look like you need this more than I do," he murmured when I pulled out my emergency water pouch. "Not today," I replied, kneeling beside him. "Drink." He hesitated, pride flickering across his features, but his body betrayed him. Slowly, he accepted the water, sipping carefully, as if honoring the gift rather than consuming it. I supported him in silence, feeling the fragile steadiness of his shoulder beneath my hand. When he finished, he didn't thank me immediately. Instead, he studied me, the way someone weighs the worth of another person without speaking. The wind moved softly around us, carrying grains of sand like whispers. "You gave without asking my name," he finally said. "You looked like someone who needed help." That was enough. A faint smile touched the corners of his mouth. He pushed himself upright with his staff, steadier now. Without another word, he turned and began walking away, disappearing gradually into the golden haze of the desert. I stood there longer than I should have, watching until he was gone. I told myself it was just a strange moment in an already difficult day, a simple act of kindness, nothing more. I had no idea that by the next morning, my door would be shaking with powerful knocks, and that the old man I thought I'd never see again would return, not alone, but with an entire tribe behind him, and a destiny I never could have imagined. I stood frozen in my doorway, convinced for a moment that exhaustion had finally tipped me into hallucination. The old man from the desert stood at the front of the crowd like a pillar of stone, his presence commanding silence. Behind him were at least 24 men, their posture disciplined, their expressions serious. And between them all, like calm in the middle of a storm, stood the two women I had only glimpsed before, Aliyah and Zoya. My heart thudded painfully in my chest. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," I managed, my voice sounding smaller than I intended. "There has been no misunderstanding," the old man said evenly. "Only a debt that must be honored." He stepped closer, and suddenly the memory of him, collapsing beneath the desert sun, felt unreal, compared to the authority he carried now. "You gave me water when you had none to spare. You did not ask my name, my status, or my value. You simply helped." "I did what anyone should," I said quickly, glancing at the watching crowd. It was not what everyone did," he interrupted gently. Aliyah met my eyes, her gaze steady, thoughtful. Zoya's expression was more guarded, but no less intense. These were not shy girls hiding behind their father's decision. They were women, fully grown, fully aware. "We asked our father to bring us," Aliyah said softly. Her voice was calm, but carried clearly. "We wanted to meet the person who showed such kindness." Zoya nodded. "He told us how people passed him by, how you stopped." I swallowed hard. "That doesn't mean I deserve this. Marriage? To both of you? That's not something you offer a stranger." Malik Rahman studied me. "You are not being purchased. You are not being pressured. This is an offer, not a command." He gestured to his daughters. "They have refused many proposals. Powerful men, wealthy men. They chose to stand here today." Silence filled the space between us, thick and overwhelming. "May we come inside?" Aliyah asked gently. "To speak without so many eyes?" I hesitated only a moment before stepping aside. Inside, over simple tea and awkward conversation, the reality of the situation settled in. They spoke of their education, their lives, their freedom to choose. This was not a fantasy born of desperation. It was tradition layered with consent and intention. "Why me?" I finally asked, unable to hold the question any longer. Aliyah answered without hesitation. "Because character matters more than status," Zoya added quietly. "Because you helped someone when no one was watching." Malik Rahman's gaze held mine. "You are free to refuse. Honor is not forced." That was the moment I understood the weight of what was being offered. Not just marriage, not just a life-altering decision, but trust, respect, a doorway into a world I never knew existed. And the choice was entirely mine. I didn't give them an answer that night. My mind was too crowded. My thoughts tangled between disbelief and something dangerously close to hope. Malik Rahman seemed to understand. He didn't push, didn't lecture, didn't attempt to sway me. Instead, he offered something else entirely. "Come and see who we are," he said the next morning when they returned. "Only then can you decide if you belong with us." Against my better judgment, I agreed. The journey to their lands took hours. But when we arrived, my expectations were shattered. I had imagined scattered tents and struggling families, barely surviving against the desert. What I found instead was a thriving community. Homes built with purpose, children studying beneath shaded canopies, people working together with quiet efficiency. There were solar panels catching the sun, water systems carefully managed, small libraries stocked with books in multiple languages. This was not a forgotten tribe. This was a civilization hidden in plain sight. Aliyah walked beside me, explaining their traditions, their values, the way honor functioned not as control, but as responsibility. Zoya stayed slightly behind, observing, noticing how people treated me, how I treated them. Her eyes missed nothing. Not everyone welcomed me. Whispers followed as we passed. Curious glances, suspicious ones too. "He is an outsider. Why should he be considered worthy?" I pretended not to hear, but the words sank deep. That evening, the tension finally surfaced. A tall man stepped forward in the gathering circle, his expression hard, his arms folded across his chest. His name was Kareem, one of the tribe's most respected young leaders. "If this man wishes to stand beside the daughters of Malik Rahman," he said, his voice carrying through the crowd, "then he must first prove he understands our values." My stomach tightened, expecting a challenge of strength, maybe even violence. But that was not what came. Instead, I was given work. Real work. For 3 days, I carried water alongside the laborers under the brutal sun. I helped elders repair shelters damaged by windstorms. I sat with children and taught them words they wanted to learn in English, their faces bright with curiosity. I worked on broken equipment with anyone who asked, listening more than I spoke. No one treated me like a guest. No one treated me like royalty. They treated me like someone being watched. On the third night, the entire tribe gathered again. This time, the air felt different, quieter, heavier with meaning. Malik Rahman placed his hand on my shoulder. "You did not perform for approval," he said. "You served because service was needed." I looked around and saw it in their eyes. Acceptance, respect, understanding. Aliyah's pride was unmistakable. Zoya's guarded expression had softened into something warmer, something real. That was when I realized the truth. This was never about being chosen by them. It was about whether I was willing to choose this life back.